try to show kindness and concern for other people. Put others before you. But how can we inculcate the spirit of Christmas so that it can be a catalyst for national unity and compassion in Nigeria? I mean, we are not just doing it in our small circles, but we are extending it to a larger scale where whatever it is that we are doing in our families, we're also extending it to the next door neighbor, and that neighbor is also doing it to the other neighbor. And like that, before you know it, we have a country that is full of compassionate individuals or citizens, as the case may be. Well, this brings us to the topic for today: the spirit of Christmas, a catalyst for national unity and compassion in Nigeria. And we shall be looking at it from the lens of showing compassion. Yes, looking at how we can align our national core values with encouraging Nigerians to be empathetic and caring towards one another. And today, right here on the show, I have here with me representatives from the Generation for Societal Change, a very, compassionate Nigerian. As always, as you know, he's not a newcomer to this station, to this program. So you must be able to guess. You must have been able to guess by now, but I'm still going to introduce him because I really never get tired of introducing him, because he's one Nigerian that is doing so much in his own corner to ensure that we get that Nigeria of our dream. I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Kamal Sultan. Hey!
Every time Cassandra makes me feel like I'm a star. But I'm not. I'm just one of each and every one of us.
This is my issue. You always have a way of being modest. I don't take your flowers, right?
Right.
Take your flowers.
No problem. Thank you very much, Cassandra. Good morning, Nigerians.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. The day is moving fast already.
Indeed.
All right. Well, if you're watching us live now on Facebook or YouTube, you would see that I have a very gentle man by my side. I see him nodding from ear to ear, and he's waiting to hear how I am going to do it. So since I'm giving Kamal all of the accolades, I hope I've remained sound for him. Well, don't worry. Mr. Brown educates here, and I'm believing that this conversation is going to be one that will be very interactive, because Kamal is never wrong when he brings people. He just say, okay, this person is coming on air. I say, okay, fine, let's do this. And somehow they always have a way of coming through. So I am excited, and it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Brown Ejike right here, a representative of the GSC as well. Good to have you here on the show for the first time, maybe me anchoring you, but I'm quite excited to have you here as we'll have this conversation, looking at Christmas and of course how we can bring about compassion in Nigeria. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay, that's more like it. So let's keep it on right here. It's Christmas, right? And everyone is talking about the fact that you need to, give food. Funny enough, I just talked about people being kind. Like, how do you reciprocate, or maybe not reciprocate, if someone gives you food and you don't want to eat the food? How do you politely tell them that I don't want to eat, I'm already full? Other people called and said, if I give you food and you don't want to eat, kindly receive the food and give to someone, maybe a less privileged, And other people would say, politely tell me and I will take it. But we all know that somehow you might overthink that this person is not just a fool. Maybe there is a reason they don't want to eat my food, and somehow you see that bad blood be there. They may not say it, but they will feel spited that you've decided not to eat their food. So during this season, how can we share kindness? How can we extend the reason for the season to our national core values or development as a country and as a people?
All right. Thank you very much, Cassandra. And thank you for the preamble. I'd like to start by saying that God only rested on the seventh day. We are representatives of God on earth here, right? Every single one of us. We have to do what we have to do in order to ensure that the earth is sustainable and as it's handed over to us. So it's Christmas, another day to celebrate, another day to jolly, but not another day to rest on our quest for nation building. So we'll keep on building until we're able to build a nation each and every one of us will be proud of. And talking about Christmas and how the lessons and teachings of the Christmas can extend is actually very imperative at about now, because one of the things our nation is devoid of is all of these emotional ties to it. Compassion, right? Sharing love, basically, and being kind and all of that to one another. However, it's just like it's fascinating to see how we wear a new coat once it's Christmas. Once it's Christmas, you see Nigerians act differently.
Yeah.
That neighbor you never knocked on his door to find out how he's doing, or
You have
to
to
even
share that
care
jollof
about.
rice.
Yeah, you go and share the rice with him. Now maybe that's the second time since after he moved in his first year that he would be seeing you, and you could see that he would be very excited. You will see that it means a lot actually, and maybe just an opportunity to steal a chat with you and all of that. So that's actually one aspect. Then you could see that how far the kindness and compassion would go, because he won't just stop there. He would feel the need to reciprocate.
That's true.
Right? And then that reciprocation also basically build a bond, right? And all of that. And one thing that is evident again, you would see around us, is the fact that people are less compassionate. However, you see, I used to say something. A problem that you see and recognize that it's a problem and you end up ignoring, right, grows up to become a problem that you cannot ignore. It might even end up consuming us.
That's true.
Right? So
That's
you
true.
can't look away from problems. You see a problem and you recognize it, it means that you have to act on it. So there's this angle of overlooking less privileged, right?
Yeah.
We don't even go an extra length to know why someone is in a certain condition. We pass them every day. If they don't even come to beg you, you don't even care about them. You don't even know. And even while they come to beg you, sometimes you don't give them listening ears. Just because they appear in tatters, just because they are not able to maybe feed and they coming to get maybe one or two things from you, you just greet them with so much aggression and all
Yeah.
of
Some
that
kind of resentment.
and resentment. Now, what that is able to do, or that poises them to do, is to know that, okay, these people aren't even as compassionate towards us. And the only way we could have to survive is maybe to go out of our ways, to constitute a crime in order to survive, right? And it puts them in very tricky situations. And then at the end of the day, it might end up harming us. And the problem even grow bigger than that.
That's true.
However, when you show compassion, just as when you do during festivity, have you noticed that during this period of festivities, everything seems calm and relaxed?
Yeah,
and you
everywhere,
barely-
everyone is
Exactly. Now, even the people who maybe could barely fend for a meal are eating, and you could see the happiness in them. They could also. So, these are the kind of spirits that we need to have and inculcate,
Okay.
not to talk about unity and all. I'm sure when the conversation even stands out, there are lots of other examples to give, but it's actually a season filled with a lot of lessons, a lot of ethical bargains that can actually eventually lead to national building and incorporating this national ethics and values as it is.
Right.
Let's use this time where we feel much more obligated to stand by a value to easily usher into the value even after the Christmas period.
even after the Christmas period. Now, coming back to you, Mr. Brown, if you could tell us how Nigerians can embody the spirit of Christmas now that Kamal has identified that it's supposed to be a season of love where we get to, project that godly love towards one another by being compassionate. How can we embody this in our daily lives as Nigerians?
Okay, it's been a very hectic year, and there's this thing about Nigerians where we think money answers all things. So, but I do tell people it's not always all about money. Time, sharing your time with people means a lot. Just being with them and discussing, just sharing time basically, and whatever it is that comes out of that situation, and then flow with it. Do you understand? Like I would say, for instance, just last week, a friend of mine works at the NPC. He just called a friend that works at Lecturer Veritas, and then organized friends, we went to the bowling arena and then had a party and just played games, Scrabble and all of that. And there was nothing serious, but it's been hectic here, like I said earlier. So we just had to just have that time out. You get that time was shared together, meant a lot. We met new people and then discussed new stuff, came up with ideas, and plan the year moving forward. So time is very important, very key if you're thinking about sharing or basking in the essence of the year holiday, which is Christmas. So it's not always all about gifting. Time is also a major gift, a very big gift that we sometimes tend to overlook. So I always tell people, make sure you try to share your time. It's very valuable, and when people understand and appreciate this, it means we can overlook other forms of gifting that we might not necessarily be privy to or could be available at the point of moment.
I think I understand this from this perspective. The fact that when we make our time for ourselves, it is a way of embodying the true spirit of Christmas, because sometimes someone would want to talk to you, but they don't even know how to go about it. And I think that just making our time, maybe for the people around you, I would give an instance for what the GSC is doing. For instance, you are trying to, think of a younger generation to see how sometimes you see young boys, you see young girls, and you are like, come join us, come see how you can be a part of this. And no matter how busy you are at some point, you still try to make out time for these people, because you understand that in that time there is always an invaluable lesson for them to learn. There's always something new for them to learn in not just developing themselves but also developing countries. So I like the fact that you talked about us looking beyond just the gifts, the tangible gifts. What about the intangible things that are there for us to explore, especially time, what we cannot see but remains very valuable? For instance, if parents had more time for their children, if some parents had more time for their children, maybe they would have been able to raise more well-behaved children in the society, the ones that would not have to resort to crime, maybe because they know better. There are some parents that will work so much, like the only time their children would have seen them is the time their children are going to sleep, but they leave the house very early. This is not to downplay the dignity of labor, but they leave the house really early, and when they come back, the kids are already asleep. They have little or no time for their children. So how do you get to inculcate these values? And let's also talk about the things that they do, because as you're doing some of these things, the children are also picking it up. And we all know that the home is like the very first place where the children get to socialize. And whatever character that they portray going forward in the country is from what they learn within these cycles of socialization. So I really like the fact that you talked about time being a major part in how we can embody the true spirit of Christmas.
Actually, so just to buttress a bit more on what you and that's Cassandra and Brown have already established, I would like to say that time is actually of the essence. Because just as you have mentioned, without time, then how do you imbibe the ethics and values that you want to see in your kids moving forward? I like to say that if you don't even have that time, right? If you don't have the capacity to be there, to be present, then you have no business with bearing children, right?
True.
You have no business in starting anything at all. You have no building.
It's very valid.
Yes, time is very valid. You don't even have any business with establishing anything at all, because you see from these little clusters that is family, right? And there's nobody guiding, nobody taking charge, nobody having the time because they are overly busy. That is when a society is being misled, right? That is where a criminal is being built. That is when something, because there's nobody really teaching them what to do, and the mind is just like a cultivation ground. When you leave it without any cultivation, any precise cultivation, what will grow in it is weed. And weeds are unwanted substances that we don't want. So at the end of the day, it gives it a lot of room to thrive. Just because that capacity, that person who ought to be there, does not have the time to be there. You don't have a farmer cultivating the land, so the weeds will grow. So time is actually of the essence, and just as you have seen, the festive periods actually avail this time for families to meet and what? Reorientate themselves,
Yeah.
redirect themselves for what? The upcoming year. So yeah, really valid point. Really valid point.
All right. Now, I hate to refer to this, but you know that for us to move forward, there are very uncomfortable truths that we must say to ourselves and also look at some of the issues. Now, remember that recently some good Nigerians, good spirited individuals and organizations decided to, organize, some food sharing measures and everything. And unfortunately, some things happened and there were stampedes and some Nigerians unfortunately lost their lives. And even though these people were trying to do something really nice, it didn't end up the way they planned it.
Yeah.
For certain factors. Other people said it was because of the economy. People wanted to get food, so everyone was scampering to get what they could get. And other people said it is because we have failed to imbibe certain values as human beings. The value of patience, that is also one thing, because when you understand that you need to be patient, it's a virtue that you need to imbibe, you will definitely know that the other person in your front will get, you will get. There is that need for orderliness. What about dignity? The fact that you need to see the other person as yourself. There are some people that it was alleged that they got their own, they went and still came back because they wanted to get more. And then some people had to, they allegedly pulled down a gate at one of the food sharing centers out of that lack of compassion for another person. They did not really consider the other person. It was just about themselves. Unfortunately, this ended in the tragic demise of so many of them that were present here.
Sadly.
So how can we, link this to some of the behaviors that we exhibit as Nigerians? Could this be because, it's the economy, or it is just because we are lacking on some of these values that would help us to get to the core of our existence as a nation?
All right, thank you very much, Cassandra. And if you noticed when you were talking about going and getting something, Brown shared a chuckle and all of that.
I've had experience.
Yeah, it's out of experience.
Very relatable, actually.
Yeah, very relatable.
Because we get to struggle, not just food, even in the banks.
Exactly.
Public places, on the queues, we are struggling,
Exactly.
We always struggle.
Exactly. And this conversation we were even having just yesterday, right? However, I would like to say that two things, right? Two things. First, I've always maintained that leadership is somewhat inspirational, motivational, and it's all that you need, right, to get the right people in the right frame of mind, right? Whoever the organizers are, they have a good intent in mind.
Yeah.
And this is in no way me trying to condemn them. But leadership also comes with capacity. Capacity because you're able to have a vision. You have to have a foresight as to what could eventually go wrong. And if you envision what could eventually go wrong, because you are able to measure the temperament of Nigerians at about now, and what possibly could be a trigger to a stampede, especially in this moment, then you will create what? A sustainable form of sharing these gifts. Right? You would find a way somehow. I'm not to teach them because I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what I'm saying. Ethics and values are intentional attempts to make yourself better. They are principles, they are values that you outline and you must embody. So, yes, it might be a learning curve, unfortunately, for the organizers, and maybe they know what to do better from now. This is the part of the leadership, right?
Yes.
However, we have the part of citizens, Nigerians, and trust me, it's not even about the hunger. It's not about the lack. Yesterday, myself, Brown, and a couple of friends were actually somewhere. During this period, we tried to also do the little we could do, especially to the less privileged, show compassion and care and all of that. We had resources we took along, and just with the same thing you're talking about. Similar thing was playing out, but we were able to curtail, right?
So
First
people
time.
were struggling for what you had to share.
Exactly. But we were able to curtail and we were able to put them in check and put them in track. Secondly, something was striking for me.
Okay.
There was one guy among all of these guys who sat aside, and this is him year in, year out. He sat and patiently waited for
His
what
turn.
was coming for him, right? And because of that character alone, we're able to attend to him a lot.
Seamlessly.
Yes, seamlessly. Would give him, and he patiently collected. When the chaos was over, he still came back and tapped and said, "Please, he wanted to see us." And what did he do? He then extended his gratitude. Said, "Thank you very much for this. Prior to now, this had been a challenge. I got it. May God," and he prayed and all of that. And this is the same guy over and over throughout the years that we've interacted with him. It got to him before, without even struggling, right? He didn't struggle. He was patient. And it made him exceptional. In fact, if he wasn't exceptional, I wouldn't be making this example.
You wouldn't even have noticed
I
him
wouldn't
because
have
he would
even
be
noticed
struggling
him.
like every other person.
Exactly.
So it
just
would have
like
been
every other
difficult.
person,
Yeah.
this guy actually had the need for the resources that was shared. But it took something, right? I know him to be that intentional being. It took him being intentional about not being in that frame that everybody was, right? In order to, he didn't exhibit any attitude that would be damning to his reputation.
Showing some kind of
Or
desperation.
showing some kind of desperation. So we shouldn't make excuses, right, for people that show bad character. There's never a reason why you should show mediocrity. Myself and yourself, there are times we experience lack. Sometimes that even a meal is a challenge. Forget it, right? You might have those downsides, but do you go on to still? Do you go on to do things that will be undignified? Would you do all of that because you lack? What would you do rather? You'd be patient or work harder, right? And still live an exemplary life.
Yeah.
So, regardless of what part or class of the community you are, it is inexcusable for you to show a lack of ethics and values. Lastly, I'd like to share an experience,
Alright.
right? If we incorporate certain ethics and values in our daily lives and our beings, then you would see that you don't even need an actual tagged leader to make things work. I remember final days in my university years.
Like you already know you're a leader, or if you could just clear on that.
Yeah, so each and every one of us have the mandate of being a leader.
Okay.
Right? Be it the fact that some are elected in positions, some are at a place of privilege, some have been elevated because of a position that was given to them. But in each and every one of us, we all have leadership spirit, we also have leadership responsibilities.
Okay.
Your ability to call out certain things, your ability to see certain things, and also act towards it to be right,
Yeah.
actually helps even the leaders in position and with the tag to organize things better. In fact, if we don't have those leaders within the ranks, within our societies, then it's almost impossible to lead, right? I hear someone, I was in the market yesterday,
Okay.
and someone was saying that it's easier to lead goats than to lead humans. And he had, he had it back into his
Gave his
context.
reasons.
But I mean, would you blame him? Would you actually say no to that? At least the goats can abide and listen to you and basically get into the frame of the direction you're trying to give.
Yeah.
But there are humans who won't, regardless of how they identify that that's actually important. Now, I was going to share my experience before that. That's that guy's thoughts, and he's actually entitled to his opinion, actually. But this thought I'm trying to bring in was, okay, this story, my final year, days in the university, we went to get our, is it testimonial or statement of results, right? And then you could tell there was like a huge crowd. We were graduating over 1,000 students or so at about then, and because there were a whole lot of people, there was no organization. The people, okay, so we were behind the window and receiving the statement of results from the window.
Oh, okay.
The people in there didn't even have control. They were already tired. Line up. If you don't line up, we will not give you this certificate. There are people who would come and out-muscle and go and get their certificates, and then everybody is angry and all of that. I wasn't in the SUG. I wasn't anything. I just knew that I was quite popular because of the sport I played back then, basketball, but I wasn't even the strongest. I wasn't maybe the most respected. But I saw it that it was wrong, and I was wasting my time literally if we didn't organize things. So I wouldn't say I grew furious, but I grew the motivation to speak up and to step up.
You saw that chance to
I saw
step
the
in
chance
as
to
a
step
leader.
in, right? And trust me, if probably I was amidst the chaos and I was propagating it, no one would have listened. So I found my way and I kept on pleading, please, excuse me, I want to get to the front. Hope you are not going to. I said, no, I want to get to the front because there's something I need to pass on. And I got myself to a podium, or a supposed podium. It
Yeah,
was a sock
where
away,
it was
right?
higher,
It was
yeah.
elevated, and I climbed on it, and I spoke to people. I said, if we keep on doing this, we might never get the certificates, right? And some of us might end up getting hurt. There was actually a potential for a stampede because I saw a girl fall, and before we could raise her and all of that. So it was with that energy that I went there. So if we do not take care of ourselves, you might end up losing yourself in an attempt to get something that is temporary. So I spoke in very clear light, and I also charged them to get on their lines. And they only had one problem. They said, I hope I won't come and maybe fusing my friends or loved ones, or because I'm on the podium.
Trust issues.
Yeah, because I'm on the podium, I'll get my certificate first. And then I said, no, I will not do that. And they all fell into queue. They respected it, and everybody was seamlessly. Certificates that would have taken maybe 30 minutes for one person to collect because of the chaos, we were collecting in 3-5 minutes. And the process was fast, and they trusted the fact that, okay, now this process was fast. People that were on that queue were now the ones who became leaders. If you come and want to shun the line, they'll tell you, no, you can't. One thing, come out, look at him. And I became like, and then I tell them to go back, and everybody was willing to back me up. I didn't collect my certificate after 10 people, after 20, after like 50 people from the room. One of the staff now said, you've actually tried. Can you collect your certificate now? And then I'm like, if I leave, the chaos would exist. And obviously, I will betray these people's trust. It would be easy to just collect the certificate. And there were people who were in agreement. And I said, I am not collecting my certificate just yet until everybody collects. I spent that first day without collecting my certificate. I felt good about what I was doing with organizing it. I came the next day and I didn't collect my certificate. And people were falling into trap. People were doing. On the third day, I collected my certificate seamlessly and we played with so much pleasure. And I mean, within that ranks, people recognized me as a leader already, and they were appreciative of the effort I put in. So this is what I meant by saying, sometimes you don't need a tag or a crown to become a leader.
Don't need to be elected or
Exactly.
appointed to
become-
lead.
Yeah, so you have the mandate just by the virtue of you being a citizen to become a leader. So you don't have to wait for anybody to organize you. That way it's even easier to lead. You see, I made it easier for the people
Yeah.
in that room to actually lead us.
You created leaders by being
And I
leader.
created leaders by
being a leader. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think this points to being selfless, which is one of the lessons that Christmas actually portrays, that we should be selfless. We should put others before ourselves, because if we were not able to put them before you, you would have collected your certificate even on the very first day or the first person, because you were the one that was able to bring up order. But you made that sacrifice. You did not consider yourself. You considered others. And imagine that this continues in the larger sphere of Nigeria, let's say at the national level, even at local level as well. Imagine we start from, from bottom up and top bottom. See how this is going to work, because you gave an instance that because you gave them your word, you didn't want to go back on that word. How about when our leaders come and say, elect me, I'm going to do this, they will actually do it. So that when next they are coming, they don't need to spend so much to buy any votes, and then they have to recoup that money when they get there. Or no one would have to, we have to shed blood because I have to win somehow. It will definitely be seamless. So I think that this Christmas is an opportunity again for us to see how we can bring about that selflessness that will be reflected in Nigeria's core values to encourage us to prioritize the greater good of the country. Now I'm coming back to you. How can we practice, compassion during Christmas? I know I talked about embodying it, but there are other very practical steps that we can take to, reach out to people, to let them know that we are thinking about them this season and that we are Nigerians. Regardless of the economic situation, there is still something that can be done about it.
I'm going to still tie it to something I call collective growth.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I think I like to think it's the opposite of selfishness. That's how I see it. So just let me refer back to the stampede you talked about. In Ibadan. I read an account of what happened. Just and there's always every part of the story coming up on social media. So I read a couple one of the organizers in Ibadan, and then he said that they made arrangements for like 5,000 seats.
5,006 people.
5,000 seats.
Okay, 5,000 seats. Oh,
to
okay.
ensure it was properly organized. Yeah, but at some point, they figured that it's Nigeria.
Yeah.
You can totally account for everything. So they added 2,000 extra seats. But by 4 p.m., 5 p.m. the day before, people started coming to the venue to camp. Do you understand?
They were no longer going back home.
Exactly.
That is where
Now,
they were sleeping.
a woman, mothers were throwing their kids over the fence so that they could get sports.
Oh, just imagine.
Now, a woman threw her child over the fence, hoping that there are people there. They will
That will grab the child.
It's we with all of us. Nobody caught that child. That child died. Just tell him bashed his head. He died. That's how the deaths occurred. Stampedes and everything. And you know how it is in Nigeria.
Yes.
When stampedes occur, people don't care. I stamp on you, I jump over, and then I'm heading for the next person to get just to shun the queue and all of that. So we're always thinking all about ourselves at every point, selfishness. So if we think about it as collective growth, like if it's working for you, it's working for me. Just like and that's compassion too. Just like Kamal said, he sacrificed himself and his sport and everything just to make sure that gets theirs. Do you understand? So if we think of it that way, there's this ripple effects that would occur if everybody thinks that way. So at some point, I don't think it's necessarily a failure of leadership. I think it's a personal thing. Because the organizers did their best, even made extra efforts to accommodate extra people, but humans will always be humans. Like you said, what happened to yesterday at the orphanage. Do you understand? So no matter what you do as a leader, humans will always be humans. The followers, the citizens will always do what they have to do. So personally, if we work canvas for collective growth, be compassionate. You getting will also mean that I might not get. But I'm willing to sacrifice my sport or time or whatever to make sure you get. And if I'm thinking that way and you're thinking that way, what do you think will be the results?
And if the fact that the person considers that go and get, and then imagine that you now say, okay, since I've gotten,
Let's
you could
share.
bring it. Yes, let's share it. You bring up a mudu and let's see how we can share this bag of
now,
rice.
If a larger percentage of the crowd thinks that way, how do you think it will happen?
Maybe 2 people can share a bag, or 3 people can share a bag.
No, in a situation like that, where the crowd of citizens are organized, you see that it will affect the leadership. They can't mess up. They will have to fall in line because the majority are already in line. So they will fall in line. That's why I said it's not a failure of leadership. It's more about the citizens.
Remember, I mentioned leadership even within the people, right? So if those leaders existed, then something would have
It's
changed.
always a ripple effect.
Yeah, so something would have changed.
So yeah, so when we think about others
Yeah.
first, that's compassion in every application, in every sector of our lives.
Yeah.
Put others first.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this tendency to be toward the selfish views at every point. But yeah, you have to like intentionally suppress that part of you. It has to be intentional. That's just the thing.
Yeah. So, isn't it, while you spoke, I just kept on wondering, isn't it fascinating that there's over 220 million of us, and every time we think about putting yourself first, we think about there's so many people but no one to listen. Imagine people exist that way, thinking there's actually no one to listen to them in this whole country. Imagine people existing and thinking I have to put myself first, despite us being over 8 billion in the world. Do you get? There's a problem, definitely. There's an ethical problem.
Yeah.
Because just as we have mentioned, time. I love that point. The time, right? Time is of the essence. Time is of the essence because aside you even coming to bring those bags of rice, if there was like a proper orientation, which is a sacrifice of time, right, to these people, because it's not, if you check it out, it's not even just about just the rice that is being shared. Largely, the poverty that we suffer as Nigerians
That's true.
is an ethical poverty.
puts you
It's
on
a
the spot.
poverty of the mind. So imagine you enrich them with the mind and program their minds in such a way that they know that when I do this, I'm falling out of place. Right? Imagine speaking to their conscience and branding your message of love, not just by giving the material. Right? For the experience I've had in humanitarian endeavors, I've come to realize that a lot of the people who are the recipients of this show of love, compassion, and maybe material benefits that they get, their problems are not those material things.
Okay.
Let me give you an instance with the orphanages. When you go to the orphanage and you present them with gift items and just snap with them and leave, you'll be doing them more harm than good. Do you know why? What they lack more than anything. There are hundreds of people who walk into those orphanages and present them
Every
with
day.
things. But trust me, they don't even remember the names of those people. But for a change, try and make sacrifice. Try and
Give time.
give your time to them. Try and have conversations. Understand where they are emotionally. Try to understand their pain and proffer an advice. Then maybe at the end of the day, just as icing on the cake, give a gift back. And see how much change you would make in the lives of those people. They won't only remember the gift that you gave them, but how you made them feel. And they won't just remember how you made them feel, they will remember the name of the person who made them feel that way.
That's where the compassion makes the difference. Yeah.
I must say that it's been a very, very robust conversation that is not just talking about compassion, but also looking at how we can align this with national development. And I've actually learned so much. You said something about the fact that it's like, it will always have a ripple effect, like a boomerang. As you do it, it's coming back. As you do it, it's coming back. Imagine every other person thinking about the other person. We would have a country that, no matter what, maybe not perfect, but near to perfect. Because I think that we cannot really achieve all of these values without looking at it from the lens of compassion, unity, and selflessness. I'm really hoping that this conversation here on radio today has been able to inspire some Nigerians, and of course to make that impact that we hope for, because like every other time we come here to discuss on the national core values, it's not because we want to talk, because we know how to speak, but it is because we want to see a Nigeria that works for all. You don't need to know anybody for Nigeria to work for you. I think the moment we do the right things, Nigeria is going to work for every other person without trying to know where you come from, what God you worship, what church, what mosques, all of that. So I must say that I'm grateful you've made our time here. It's Christmas, but you've made our time to be with us. It's something that we do not take for granted. Thank you very much for coming again to speak to
Thanks,
Nigerians.
Cassandra.
We hope to see you next week. Thank you very
Likewise.
much, Kamal and
you.
Brown.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Cassandra, thank you, Nigerians.
Thank you very much. Well, it's the season of love, but it's just it's Christmas, and we have to move away from just all of the buzz, all of the obele, how you guys call it, all of the shake body and everything. Let's be more reflective, right? You can vibe and still be very reflective about country. How can we prioritize this national core values to help us prioritize the greater good for the benefit of all Nigerians? This is something I leave you to ponder on this Wednesday afternoon right here on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. As we celebrate Christmas, are we imbibing the spirit of selflessness, or are we just following the crowd? I am Cassandra Unimbe. Thanks for listening. Continue to listen to Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can always count on. Merry Christmas, and I tell you what, radio is just getting started with us.